If you're using your 2005 to 2020 Tacoma to its fullest extent, or even if you just got a lot of miles on the clock, your CV joints may be worn and you might be in need of some new axles. This set of front CV axle shafts will give you a full bolt-on replacement for your front stock units for less than the price of just one axle from Toyota themselves. It's going to have your truck driving like new in no time flat. On a four-wheel drive truck, the front axles and CV joints can really take a beating. Those axles are doing a lot of work, especially if you're using four-wheel drive. And that's going to be true whether you've got a lift kit or you're running at stock height, especially if you're using your truck to its fullest extent. If those CV joints start to bind, you're having a hard time getting your truck moving, you're just getting power to the ground. Not to mention the horrible clicking or grinding noise these make when they go bad. You're really going to need some new ones. Now what we have here is a fully matched set of new factory-style drive axles with pre-greased CV joints and brand new boots included. These are made to be exact replacements for your factory bits, meaning that they will bolt right in with no modifications needed. They feature pre-lubricated joints plus new boots, and they come ready to mount on your truck to get you rolling smoothly and safely again without any fuss. As you might expect, these are built to mimic the stuff that your truck came with from the factory. They're made from the same type of materials as factory components, and you're going to find those new pre-greased joints covered by the neoprene boots, new clamps, new seals, even new castle nuts at the end, and that makes these ready to bolt right on in. Now it's worth noting that these are also manufactured in an ISO 9002 certified facility, meaning that they have been wear, impact, and fatigue tested to ensure they adhere to strict quality control standards, very much like your originals. Pricing comes in at about $225 for the set, and that makes this a really affordable option. It's going to save you quite a bit of money versus the equivalent parts from Toyota because just one of those will be more than this entire set. So it's even better than a buy one get one free, and you're going to get essentially the same type of thing. Installation gets a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and the job should take you around 3 hours to complete. These are a bolt-in replacement. They don't require you to make any modification to the truck itself, though there is quite a bit of disassembly required in order to get them fitted. But fret not, this is a job you can tackle at home given the right tools and enough time. So we're going to head out to the shop right now and we'll walk you through the process step by step.
Tools required for this install include a couple different size impact guns, a ratchet, hammer, pry bar, chisel, needle nose pliers, a pick, an extension, 10mm Allen socket, 17 and 19mm swivel sockets, 10, 12, 17, 19, 35, and 41mm sockets, a caliper hook, and differential fluid. What's up guys? Today we're installing front CV axles on our Tacoma, so let's get started. So the first thing we gotta do is get our knuckle out of here. So I'm going to start by disconnecting our brake and ABS brackets, and I'll get the sway bar end link while we're in that area. So I'm going to start with a 10mm socket on this top bracket. And you can just pop that out of the way, throw your bolt back so you don't lose it. And then switch to a 12mm socket for the brake line bracket. Same thing, thread that bolt back in. And then grab a 17mm socket for the sway bar end link. Pop that out, and I'm just going to do the same thing there. Next, we're going to remove our caliper. We've got two 17mm bolts holding that onto our knuckle. I've got a caliper hook here so that we can hang that up out of the way, make sure we don't put any pressure on our brake lines. So grab a 17mm swivel socket and remove those two bolts. And just get a hand on the caliper before you remove the second one. And now you can wiggle your caliper off of the rotor. Get that hung onto your hook and connect it up to the frame. Next we can remove our rotor. Now when I popped our caliper off, our rotor broke free, so we can just pull this off. If yours is stuck on the hub, you have this cutout here in the dust shield where the caliper sits, so you can get a rubber mallet behind it and give it a couple smacks. You can rotate the hub here if you need to hit it from a different angle, and eventually you'll get that to pop free. Next we need to pop off this cover for our axle nut. Now you can do that using a chisel and a hammer, or if you have a flathead screwdriver that's old that you don't care about, you can use that too. Just work your way around and get that to pull out. And then you can wedge that in between once you have a little gap, and then hit that chisel backwards to pop it out. Now next we can grab a pair of needle nose pliers to remove our cotter pin as well as cover, and then we'll get access to the axle nut. So just bend these sides back straight. And then you can grab it from the other side, pull that out, remove your cover. Now grab a 35mm axle socket to remove the nut. I like to push on it while I do it, and sometimes it helps dislodge the axle from the splines. Next, we'll disconnect our tie rod end. So same idea as the axle nut. Bend back the sides of your cotter pin. And then pull that out from the other side. And then take a 19mm socket to remove the nut. And then you can grab a hammer to beat on the side of the knuckle here to pop that tie rod end loose. Next, we can come up to our upper control arm ball joint, grab your needle nose pliers, pull out your cotter pin, and then grab a 19mm swivel socket. We're gonna loosen up this castle nut. You don't wanna pull it all the way off. So we'll just leave it on a couple threads there, and then tap the knuckle with a hammer, just like for the tie rod, until that breaks free. And then you can pull down, spin your nut off the rest of the way. Next, we can disconnect this connector for our ABS. So just grab a pick and press down on the tab at the back here and pop that off. There's also going to be a clip on this bracket here. Ours is broken, but you can take a clip remover tool to pop that off. And now we can remove these two 19mm bolts holding our lower ball joint cradle. Now this is the last thing holding our knuckle on besides our axle and the hub. So just make sure you have a hand on it before you pull that out so it doesn't fall out. And then we're just gonna have to wiggle it off the axle. So I'm taking a 19mm swivel socket to pull these bolts out. Now I've got my hand on the knuckle. Now you can lift up, pop your axle out, and remove your knuckle. So now with our knuckle removed, we just need to pop out our axle. We've got all of these little flat spots on the inner joint here. So you're just gonna take a pry bar, get it up against there, and then take a hammer and start whacking it until that pops out of our transfer case here. I've got a bucket underneath because you are gonna lose some diff fluid. If you do this on the ground and only jack up one side so that you have this at an angle, you'll lose less fluid or no fluid. And you can rotate this while you're working on it, hit it from different sides. And now we've got our axle popped out finally. Just gonna slide it out the rest of the way. Make sure you got that bucket down there to collect your fluid. So now we're ready to install our new axle. So we're gonna get our splines lined up in the transfer case, and then we're just gonna give it one good shove to engage that C-clip. Once you got it in, just give it one good shove. And now we're fully engaged in there. You can give it a tug and it's not coming back out. So now we can grab our knuckle and start putting all this back together. So now you can grab your knuckle. I'm gonna slide our axle into the hub first and then connect my upper control arm ball joint to support the weight of our knuckle. Now engaged there. Drop that down. Got my castle nut here. Put that on a few threads to start out. And then push my axle all the way through. I'm just gonna thread on our new axle nut just as far as I can by hand. Now we can go back to our lower control arm and reinstall our bolts through the lower ball joint cradle and into the knuckle. You might have to maneuver your knuckle around a little bit, as well as your cradle, to get these holes to line up. And then I'm just using my 19mm socket to get my threads started, make sure they're threaded nicely before I hammer it down. So now both of those are threaded nicely. So I'm gonna throw that on my impact gun, tighten that down. Next, I'm gonna take a 19mm swivel socket, tighten down my upper ball joint. Now once you have that tight, you wanna make sure that one of the slots in your castle nut lines up with the hole in the stud. Now I need to tighten this a little bit more to get that completely lined up. If yours doesn't line up, always tighten a little bit more to get it, never loosen it. And now we're pretty lined up. So I'm gonna grab my cotter pin, slide that through the hole. Next we can tighten down our axle nut and install our cotter pin. Now you're gonna need a 41mm socket, or an 1 5/8 will also get the job done. And then you can grab your cotter pin, slide it through the hole in the stud here, and grab your needle nose pliers, bend those in opposite directions, and then you can grab your cover, press that into place, and then just grab a rubber mallet and just give it one good whack. Next we can get our brakes reinstalled. So slide your rotor onto the hub, and then just take a lug nut, thread that on to hold it flat against the hub. That'll make it a lot easier to get your caliper back on. Next you can grab your caliper off the hook and slide that over the rotor. And then you can grab your bolts, start threading those in. And then grab your 17mm swivel socket to tighten those down. Next we can reinstall our tie rod end. Thread on your nut and take a 19mm socket, tighten it down. Line up that slot with the hole in the stud. And then grab your cotter pin, slide it through that hole. And then grab your needle nose pliers to bend those around. And then we can grab our ABS wire, plug that into our connector right below that, press it into place, and then you can put your clip back into this bracket if yours is not broken. And now we just need to reconnect our 2 brackets and our sway bar end link. And then we'll grab a 17mm socket for the end link. And then grab a 12mm socket for your brake line bracket. And then a 10mm socket for your upper control arm bracket. And now you can repeat that whole process on the other side. Now once you have both of your axles in, we're gonna have to come back to the driver's side and remove our fill plug here using a 10mm Allen socket. And then you're gonna need some 75W85 gear oil to put back in there. And just make sure you have your bucket underneath just in case. And now you can get your gear oil. We're just going to be filling this hole until we get a steady stream coming out of the hole, and then we'll put our plug back in, and that's how you know that you're filled to the correct level. Now this is pretty thick stuff, so it might take a while. Now we have a steady stream, so put your plug back in, and then grab your ratchet and snug it up. You don't have to go crazy tight on this. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the front CV axles for your 2005 to 2020 four-wheel drive Tacoma. Thank you for watching, and for all things Tacoma, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.